The stars outside the ship Aurora looked cold and distant. The vast black space stretched forever in all directions. Captain John Walker stood on the bridge, staring at the silent emptiness. His ship was tired. His people were tired. Supplies were running low, but they had no choice. They had to keep moving. Earth was gone, destroyed long ago by wars and greed. Humanity had fled to the stars, scattering across the galaxy. Aurora was one of the last ships still searching for a new home. John ran a hand through his short, dark hair. His face was sharp, his eyes focused. He knew every decision he made could mean life or death for his crew. "Captain, all systems stable," said Lieutenant Harris, a young officer sitting at the control panel. John nodded. "Good. Keep scanning. We can't take any chances." For a few moments, everything was calm. The soft hum of the engines, the quiet tapping of fingers on keyboards. It almost felt peaceful. Then the alarm screamed. "Captain, incoming ships, Krill, signatures," Harris shouted. John's heart dropped. Krill, humanity's oldest enemy. A brutal alien race that believed only the strongest deserved to live. "How many?" John barked. 5 warships, closing fast." John didn't hesitate. Shields up, evasive maneuvers. The ship shook as the first shots slammed into the hull. Sparks flew from damaged panels. The crew scrambled, shouting orders and warnings. "Shields at 60%. We've lost engine power on deck 3. John gripped the rail tightly. His mind raced. They were outnumbered, outgunned. Running wasn't an option. Fighting might be suicide. He opened a shipwide channel. "All crew, this is Captain Walker. Stay at your stations. We will not fall today. Hold your positions. We are survivors." His voice was steady, even though fear gnawed at him inside. He couldn't show weakness. Not now. Another blast rocked the ship. Red lights flashed everywhere. "Stand! We can't take much more of this," Harris shouted. John's eyes narrowed. They had to find another way. A way the Krill wouldn't expect. He turned to his tactical officer. "Options?" The officer hesitated. "None, sir, unless we try unconventional methods." John's mind clicked. He remembered something. Someone they had locked deep within the ship months ago. A prisoner. A Krill defector. It was a crazy idea, but crazy ideas were all they had left. "Prepare for heavy damage," John said. "And get me access to the brig. We're going to have a conversation with our guest." The ship shook again as another blast hit, but John stood firm. He wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. The walk to the brig felt long and heavy. Captain John Walker moved quickly down the narrow halls of the Aurora, the ship groaning around him with each distant explosion. Emergency lights bathed everything in a red glow. Beside him, Lieutenant Harris hurried to keep up. "Sir, are you sure about this?" Harris asked. Worry clear in his voice. "No," John answered honestly. "But we're out of options." They reached the security checkpoint. 2 guards stood in front of a thick metal door. One of them, a tall woman named Sergeant Vale, saluted sharply. "Sir, this area is secure," she said. "But, are you really going in there?" John looked her in the eye. "I need to speak with the prisoner." "Open it." Sergeant Vale hesitated, then tapped a code into the panel. The heavy door slid open with a hiss. Inside, the cell was dim and cold. In the center sat a tall figure with pale gray skin and deep black eyes. Dravak, the Krill defector. His hands were chained to the floor. His breathing was slow and calm, almost like he was waiting. John stepped inside alone. The door closed behind him. For a moment neither spoke. Dravak tilted his head slightly, studying John. His voice was low and smooth. "I wondered how long it would take before you came crawling to me." John stayed firm. "This isn't about pride. It's about survival." Dravak gave a small, cruel smile. "Ah, so humanity is finally desperate enough to ask for help from the ones they fear." John didn't flinch. "You know what's happening. The Krill are attacking. If you want to live, you'll help us stop them." Dravak chuckled. A dry, hollow sound. And what do I get in return, human? Your freedom, John said simply. Help us, and once this is over you walk free. For a moment there was silence. Only the faint tremble of the ship under fire filled the room. Dravak's smile faded. His eyes grew sharper, colder. Why should I trust you? You shouldn't, John said. But I'm offering you a chance, one you won't get if this ship is destroyed. Dravak leaned forward, chains rattling. And how do I know you won't just kill me once you have what you want? John stepped closer. Because we're not Krill, we keep our word. Dravak stared at him for a long time. Finally he nodded once, slow and deliberate. I will help you, he said. But remember this, Captain Walker. The real enemy is not always the one you see. John didn't fully understand the meaning behind those words, but he didn't have time to question it. He signaled for the guards. Unchain him, carefully. As the guards moved in, John gave one last warning. If you betray us, I'll put you down myself. Dravak smiled again, but this time it was smaller, almost respectful. I would expect nothing less, he said. The ship rocked again. Time was running out. John knew he had just made a deal with a devil, but if it meant saving his people, it was a deal he was willing to make. Captain John Walker led Dravak through the dim, shaking halls of the Aurora. 2 armed guards walked close behind, their hands on their weapons. Everyone they passed stared in shock. It wasn't every day they saw a Krill walking free on their ship. John ignored the looks. He had bigger problems. They reached the command room. Officers gathered around, tense and suspicious. Lieutenant Harris stepped forward, his eyes wide when he saw Dravak. Sir, what is he doing here? Harris demanded. He's going to help us, John said firmly. Or we're all dead. Some officers grumbled under their breath. Harris shook his head but said nothing more. John turned to Dravak. Tell us what you know. Dravak's black eyes scanned the holographic map of the Krill fleet. He pointed at one of the larger ships. That one. The Gorath-class destroyer. It commands the fleet. Take it out, and the others will fall into confusion. John leaned closer. How? Dravak smiled slightly. The Gorath has a hidden weakness. Its power core is exposed at the rear for cooling. It's protected by heavy armor, except during battle. When it fires its main cannon, the cooling vents open. That's your window. John studied the map. It was risky. Very risky, but it was a chance. What do we need to do? He asked. Dravak's voice was calm and certain. You need to distract them, force them to fire. Then strike fast before they can seal the vents. John looked around at his officers. Doubt was written all over their faces. You expect us to trust him, one of the engineers said angrily. If you have a better idea, I'm listening, John replied sharply. Silence. John made his decision. Prepare a strike team. We'll use our fastest fighters. We only get one shot at this. He turned back to Dravak. You'll guide us in. Dravak nodded once. As the meeting broke up, Harris pulled John aside. He lowered his voice. Captain, this could be a trap. John's face was hard. I know, but sitting here and waiting to die isn't a better plan. Harris hesitated, then nodded. Meanwhile, tension was growing among the crew. Whispered conversations in the halls, angry glares toward Dravak. Many felt betrayed. Some were even afraid. John knew trust couldn't be forced. It had to be earned. And right now, survival came first. That night, John sat alone in his quarters, staring at a small photo of Earth. His home, a place he had only seen in stories. He thought about the risk he was taking, about the lives depending on him. He thought about Dravak's words. The real enemy is not always the one you see. John didn't know if he could trust the Krall, but he knew he had no choice. Tomorrow they would strike. And one way or another, everything would change. The next morning, the crew of Aurora moved like a machine. Fear still hung heavy in the air, but orders were followed quickly. Captain John Walker stood at the center of the hangar, watching as his pilots suited up. The air was thick with the smell of oil, smoke, and burning metal. John gathered the strike team, A group of 12 of the best pilots and engineers left on the ship. Each one looked tired but ready. Behind them, Dravak stood quietly, his tall form wrapped in a simple gray flight suit. John spoke firmly. "This is our only chance. Dravak will guide you to the target. Hit the vents when they open. Don't hesitate. If you miss, we don't get a second shot." The pilots nodded, faces grim. John looked at Dravak. "You better be right about this." Dravak's lips curled into a thin smile. "I have no reason to lie, Captain. If you die, so do I." John didn't reply. He turned to his team. "Move out." The fighters launched into space, their engines roaring like thunder. From the bridge, John watched the tiny ships dart across the blackness toward the giant shape of the Krill-Gorath-class destroyer. The Krill fleet immediately reacted. Enemy ships swarmed like hornets, opening fire. Red beams of energy crisscrossed the void. John clenched his fists. "Hold the line," he muttered. Through the comms he heard Harris shouting updates. "Shields down to 70%. Fighter 1 is hit but still flying." The strike team circled the massive enemy ship, dodging blasts, drawing fire. Dravak's voice crackled through the speaker. "Now, Captain, force them to use the main cannon." John gave the order. "All ships, attack the forward batteries." The fighters moved with deadly precision, strafing the enemy's heavy guns. The Gorath growled to life. Its main cannon began to charge, glowing a deadly red. John held his breath. The cannon fired, a beam so powerful it cut through space like a knife. For a moment the cooling vents at the rear of the Krill ship opened wide. "Now," John roared. The strike team dove. Tiny missiles streaked toward the exposed core. There was a blinding flash. Then another. The rear of the Krill ship exploded, tearing the vessel apart from within. Cheers erupted across the Aurora Bridge. "They're breaking formation," Harris shouted. On the screen, the Krill fleet looked confused, leaderless. Some ships began to retreat. Others fired wildly. John exhaled for the first time in minutes. "We did it." But the moment of victory was short. In the hangar, while the pilots returned, a different battle was brewing. A group of angry crew members had gathered, their faces twisted with fear and hate. At their center, Dravak stood calmly, surrounded. "You betrayed us once," one of them shouted. "How long before you betray us again?" They raised weapons. Dravak didn't move. John sprinted down to the hangar, shouting, "Stand down, now." The mob hesitated, but didn't lower their guns. John stepped between Dravak and the crew. His voice was sharp. "He helped us win today. Without him, we'd be dead." One of the crew, a burly engineer named Marks, spat on the floor. "He's still Krill. He'll turn on us the second he gets a chance." John looked Marks in the eye. "Maybe he will, maybe he won't, but today, he kept his word. That's more than some of you have done." Slowly, the guns lowered. The crew backed away, angry but silent. Dravak said nothing. He only gave John a small nod of thanks. John watched them leave, his heart heavy. Victory had come at a price. Trust was still broken. Fear still ruled. But for now, they were alive. And that was enough. Tension gripped the Aurora like a vice. Even though they had won a small victory, the crew felt divided. Whispers filled the halls. Fear poisoned every glance at Dravak. Some thought Captain John Walker had lost his mind. Others stayed silent, too scared to pick a side. John stood on the bridge, feeling the weight of every angry stare. He knew the ship was a spark away from mutiny. Lieutenant Harris approached him quietly. "Sir, there's a meeting happening down on Deck 5. Some of the crew, they're talking about taking control." John didn't flinch. He had expected this. "Who's leading it?" he asked. Harris hesitated. "Marks, and a few others." John nodded. "Get me a shipwide channel. I'll handle this." A few seconds later, John's voice echoed through every speaker on the ship. "This is Captain Walker. I know many of you are scared. I know some of you don't trust my choices. That's fair. But listen carefully." He paused, letting his words sink in. We survived today because we took a risk. We trusted someone we didn't have to, and it saved all our lives. John's voice grew stronger. We can tear ourselves apart with fear and hate, or we can stand together. If you want to survive, you have to trust. Maybe not me, maybe not even Dravek, but trust that we have a better chance together than divided. He ended the broadcast. For a moment there was silence. Then slowly, the ship returned to its duties. The crew wasn't happy, but they were listening. Later John visited the engine room. He found Dravek there, working quietly on a damaged cooling system. The alien's long fingers moved with surprising skill, welding pieces back together. John watched him for a while before speaking. You didn't have to help. Dravek didn't look up. If this ship dies, so do I. My survival depends on yours. John stepped closer. Maybe, but you could have sabotaged us too. Dravek finally met his eyes. I made a choice, Captain. The Krill turned on me long ago. I have no loyalty to them now. John nodded slowly. And what about loyalty to us? Dravek gave a thin smile. That depends on whether you keep seeing me as an enemy. John didn't answer right away. Trust wasn't built in a day. But actions spoke louder than words. Keep working, John said simply. He left Dravek to his repairs and walked back toward the bridge, feeling a little lighter. Maybe survival wasn't just about fighting enemies. Maybe it was about learning who your real allies were. Outside the ship, the Krill fleet regrouped. The battle wasn't over yet, but inside Aurora, a new kind of strength was growing. One built not from fear, but from hard-earned trust. The bridge of Aurora was tense and ready. Every station was manned. Every eye was sharp. Captain John Walker stood at the center, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. Ahead of them, the Krill fleet reformed into a deadly wall. Even without their command ship, they were still dangerous. The final battle was about to begin. John tapped the comm panel. All hands battle stations. This is it. Lieutenant Harris stepped closer. Sir Dravak says the Krill will attack head-on. They'll try to overwhelm us with numbers. John nodded. Then we give them something they don't expect. In the war room earlier, Dravak had explained the Krill strategy. They believe in strength, he had said. They think you will stand and fight. Don't lure them. Break their formation. It was risky, but John trusted the plan. Now he gave the order. Pull back. Make it look like we're retreating. The Aurora slowly reversed course. The Krill ship surged forward, chasing them. They're taking the bait, Harris said, watching the radar. John kept his voice calm. Good. On my mark, turn and fire everything we've got at their flanks. The Krill didn't see it coming. At John's command, Aurora spun sharply, its weapons lighting up the darkness. Missiles streaked across space. Lasers burned through Krill shields. The enemy ships reeled in confusion. Their tight wall broke apart. John seized the moment. Strike teams, now. From the hangar, fighter ships launched in waves, darting through the gaps in the Krill lines. They struck engines, weapons, anything they could hit. One Krill cruiser exploded, sending debris flying. Another ship lost power and drifted helplessly. On the bridge, alarms still blared. Aurora was taking hits too. Shields down to 30%. Harris shouted. John gritted his teeth. Keep pushing. We finish this now. The Krill flagship, a huge scarred vessel called Bloodfang, moved into position. It charged its main cannon, aiming straight for Aurora. John saw it on the screen. He made a quick decision. All energy to forward shields. Ram their command deck. Gasps filled the bridge. It was a suicide move. But the crew obeyed. Aurora accelerated, engines screaming. The Krill flagship fired too late. The blast skimmed the shields, shaking the ship violently, but not stopping it. With a deafening crash, Aurora slammed into the Bloodfang's side. Metal twisted. Air vented into space. John held onto the railing as the ship shook violently. Damage report. He barked. We're stable. Hull breaches in decks 6 and 7. But the core is intact, Harris replied. Through the smoke, John saw Krill ships pulling back. Their flagship was crippled. Without it, their fleet was falling apart. "They're retreating," Harris shouted. Cheers erupted across the bridge. Some people cried. Others just sat back in relief. John slumped into his chair, exhausted but alive. They had done it. Later, as damaged crews rushed through the halls, John stood by a window, watching the wreckage of the battle drift into the stars. Stravak joined him. Silent for a moment. Finally the Krill said, "You fight with more heart than I thought possible." John smiled faintly. "And you chose a side when it mattered." Stravak nodded. "Perhaps there is more strength in unity than we believed." John didn't answer. He just stared out at the broken fleet, knowing this was only one battle in a long war. But for now, they had survived. For now, they had hope. The battle was over, but the Aurora was wounded. Engineers worked around the clock, sealing hull breaches and repairing critical systems. Sparks flew from broken panels. Every hallway carried the smell of smoke and burning wires. Captain John Walker stood once again on the bridge, looking over what was left of his ship and his people. The crew was exhausted, bruised and battered, but they were alive. "Status report," John said quietly. Lieutenant Harris, his face lined with dirt and sweat, read from a tablet. "Engines running at 40%. Life support stable. Weapons offline for now. But we're still flying, sir." John gave a small nod. That was all that mattered. Across the screen, the remains of the Krill fleet drifted away. Broken, defeated. They wouldn't be a threat anytime soon. John turned to the crew. "Set course for Sector 9. There's a supply station there. We'll make repairs and regroup." "Aye, Captain," Harris said. As the ship slowly moved forward, John made a new announcement over the ship-wide speakers. "To all crew members, today we faced death and chose to fight. We trusted one another when it was hardest. We proved that fear does not control us. We are survivors. And as long as we stay together, we will find our home." Walker out. Later, John walked down to the medical bay. He checked on the wounded, thanking each one personally. Every handshake, every nod of gratitude filled him with quiet pride. Near the far end of the bay, he found Stravak sitting quietly. A small wound was bandaged across the Krill's arm. He stood as John approached. "You kept your word," John said. "And you kept yours," Stravak replied. There was a long pause between them. John reached into his pocket and pulled out a simple card with a code on it. "This will unlock the launch bay doors. You're free to go, if you want." Stravak looked at the card, then back at John. "Freedom is a strange thing, Captain. I am not sure I know what to do with it anymore." "You'll figure it out," John said. Stravak gave a slight bow. "Perhaps our paths will cross again." "Maybe," John said with a small smile. Without another word, Stravak turned and walked away, disappearing into the ship's lower decks. Hours later, John returned to the bridge. The Aurora sailed through open space, heading toward a brighter horizon. Stars stretched endlessly ahead. He leaned against the window, staring out. Earth was a memory. The galaxy was a vast unknown. But they had proven something important. They were not alone. They were stronger together. They could still hope. John smiled to himself, feeling something he hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. A new chapter for humanity had begun, and they were ready.